Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
Financial Survival Network is presented to you by Regal Assets. Buy and sell physical gold and silver through your existing retirement plan, 100% tax-free with Regal Assets. If you want to include physical gold or silver in your existing IRA or old 401k, request your free investment kit, which was recently featured in the Forbes and Smart Money Wall Street Journal magazines. Call toll-free 855-678-6620, 855-678-6620, or visit regalassets.com. The problem with manipulated markets is people don't understand. You never really realize the impact that they have on life as we know it. One person who's thought a lot about that and is more knowledgeable about it than just about anyone else is Ed Steer. He's with Casey Research, does the Daily Gold Report, which is must reading if you care about metals, the economy, and what they're going to do next. Ed, welcome back to FinancialSurvivalNetwork.com.
Well, thanks very much for having me on again.
You know, it's always great to have you because you've got insights. You know, while we sleep, you're working on that newsletter and you're figuring out what they're going to do probably before the algorithms have figured it out sometimes. Don't you think?
Well, once in a while, I do stumble across something and it happens immediately, like I said in my column this morning, and I filed it about 5:20 Eastern time this morning. I said Ted Butler mentioned the fact that Du Bois may now have accumulated enough short positions to engineer another sell-off in the precious metals. And as I've mentioned on countless occasions in this column over the years, I'm always on the lookout for in your ear, and you should be as well, dear reader. And 2 hours after I hit the send button, or 3 hours after I hit the send button, the COMEX opened and silver went down $1 in less than 10 minutes. So it was it's just the way it turned out. But you always know when they're showing up at the door, sooner or later they're going to pull the trigger and ring the cash register on their behalf.
No doubt, no doubt. And we're talking about markets and they're being so manipulated that if the jig is up for the precious metals, for gold and silver, you think that all other markets are going to go sky high as well, correct?
Well, as long as they keep the two forms of money suppressed, the price of gold and silver, and of course platinum and palladium as well, which are the four precious metals. As long as they keep their finger on those prices, they prevent a real price of these metals from showing up on the market and giving a true meaning to the value of all the fiat and paper currencies that are out there, because basically they're not worth anything. And as long as we continue to believe they are, that's fine. But the moment gold and silver and the other precious metals head to the moon, then the price of all commodities will go sky high, because the value of paper money will be instantly depreciated, and we're going to have some inflation numbers in foods and grains and everything else that are just going to make your eyes water. And this is what they're desperately trying to prevent right now.
And you had a quote, only the direct intervention by J.P. Morgan et al. Is preventing the precious metals from reaching their true market price. How much longer can they do this?
Well, you saw them do it this morning, and if you take a look back over the last year or so, they did it on May 1st, they did it again in September, and then again in December, and just recently in May. And they've been keeping the precious metals, under very tight rein here for the last 3 or 4 months. I just read Ted Butler's latest commentary, and he was commenting that they're just not letting the price of these metals go anywhere within 2,000 or 3,000 contracts. So until we see a price breakout to the upside, they're going to allow a price break to the upside. They certainly didn't in the last week or so. They're going to keep their thumb on this until they decide the jig is up. And as I said, they're going to keep it up until they can't keep it up any longer. And as far as I'm concerned, that day is getting pretty close at hand.
Yeah, we hear about a lot of rating of allocated accounts, of GLD and SLV being basically fictions, and yet when you see a day like today, you know that they're going to slam the metals on a Fed meeting day. I mean, it's as predictable as that the sun is going to rise in the east and set in the west. I mean, how can there be any doubt in anyone's mind at this point that this is the game that they're playing?
Well, there's a lot of people out there that just don't want to believe, and there's also that not invented here syndrome, and there's people out there that just don't like the messenger, so they shoot the messenger regardless of how true the message is. And, after being 12 in this for 12 years, I'm just amazed at the number of people that just will not admit to the obvious, even though it's obvious to just about everybody else out there. And none are so blind as those who will not see, as the saying goes.
Truer words. And you look around, and this is most of the people that are blind, because I think if you admitted that there was manipulation and price suppression and whatever else they're doing on the metals markets, then you would have to really wake up about all markets that are rigged to some extent, because it looks to me like just about every market on the planet is rigged at this point.
Well, the LIBOR scandal that just broke out in the last month or so should, put paid to this because, the interest rate scandal is so monstrous. It affects every single person on the planet who has a credit card or who borrows money or lends money or gets a mortgage or anything else that has financial. And they've been rigging this market to their own benefit from what I've read on the internet here in the last couple of days since back in the early 90s. So how far much of a stretch is it to think that they would be manipulating the precious metals as well, because those are the only two forms of money, and if you're manipulating everything else, it goes without saying. The other thing you have to manipulate is the four precious metals, and that's precisely what they're doing. But sooner or later, people are going to realize this, and as Chris Powell said, there are no markets anymore, only interventions.
It sure looks like that, boy. I mean, this was so predictable today, and you see it especially in the summer months, because trading volume's down. It's easier to manipulate than, say, after Labor Day when everybody's back and the market's going at full steam. And yet, I don't see how anyone could look at this and arrive at any other conclusion. And then we get to the CFTC, who is the watchdog supposed to be protecting you, supposed to be making sure that you get a fair deal in the markets, that you don't get ripped off, that your trades get executed honestly and transparently, and yet none of that's taken place.
No, absolutely. Everybody's in on this rig job, including the CME and the SEC, and of course the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which J.P. Morgan and all the other guys do their trading through. Everybody's out there to protect the paper short position in the silver market and the gold market and every other market that the banks have a hand in, especially the American banks. And this has been ongoing for decades, and only now with the LIBOR scandal and of course the gold and silver scandal showing up, is it becoming obvious to everybody. But like I said before, there are people just who aren't going to believe this, no matter whether you bring it down from a certain mountain in the Middle East or written on 2 stone tablets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going to liken it to the Ark and Noah. And the flood's coming, and nobody's going to believe you, but the flood is coming. And then all of a sudden, when people are up to their necks, all of a sudden they're believers. And that's what tragedy, that's what calamity, cataclysmic events, they give religion to the masses, as it were.
Absolutely.
So it's simple. You need to have metals exposure, and probably more than you ever needed before. But if you're looking at this thing and you realize that there's no more markets, there's just interventions, and it's all a rig job, then you really don't have many choices, do you?
Absolutely not. And this is a very difficult time for investors to buy, is because the psychology is in the precious metals market is just so horrible that everybody's, that's, sold their position and are out sitting on the sidelines with burned fingers and, huge holes in their portfolios, are saying, gee whiz, I'm not going to touch this market with a 10-foot cattle prod. But as I said, you've got to buy when blood is running in the streets. You've got to have absolute faith that this is not going to last forever, and it won't last forever. Nothing lasts forever, and this won't either. So you have to step up to the plate and place your bets, and this is the time to be buying physical silver and gold with both hands, and the shares as well, because they're not going to remain at these ridiculous prices forever. And it's the people that are brave that invest today that are going to be the winners tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was who said it to me because I do a lot of interviews, but he said, "You're either a contrarian or you're a victim." And that's certainly the case here. And it's so interesting. There was a mining company, La Mancha Mining, La Mancha Resources. An Egyptian billionaire bought it for $500 million, wrote a check. He bought gold for the equivalent of $50 an ounce in the ground. And right now it's 1600. We can only speculate where it's headed. Everybody has a different number and everybody has a different timetable. But the one thing is certain, the more this scam goes on, the closer the day of reckoning is.
Absolutely, because you cannot keep a scam up forever, especially when everybody's in on it. I mean, it's almost to the point now where even if the non-believers who stand up and say, "I don't believe this," that's what they're saying publicly for public consumption, but privately, they know perfectly well that this thing is a scam, and everybody sooner or later is wise to them. And that's the situation we've arrived at basically today. And when everybody's wise to them, the victim is the one that gets scammed. And it's going to blow up in their faces, but I think the government will certainly step in and protect J.P. Morgan and HSBC USA and anybody else who happens to have a large short position on in the metals, probably at the government's request at the time. So they will be saved, but the other people, anybody who's invested will do very, very well for themselves.
Yeah, so how do they step in? Force majeure, terminate all the contracts? Is it just like any other derivative contract that's not going to be paid off? They'll just be terminated as void against public policy? Or do they come and they just stand and deliver the metals, or what?
Well, they've only got three choices. They can either, as you said, deliver the metals, cover the short position by buying along, or default. Those are the only three choices they got. And that's what a futures contract on the COMEX says. So you have to, he who buys what isn't his and buys it back or goes to prison. And that still stands today, but if you've got the backing of the government behind you, well, that still means the fact that if you're up to your neck in losses, the government's going to step in and cover those losses rather than close the exchange for those metals, because, the United States doesn't want to lose its preeminent position as controlling world commodity prices. And like I said at the top of this interview, nobody really knows how this is going to end up. All we know is that the prices in both metals are going to be materially higher than they are now. And the debris field that's left from this is anybody's guess. And all you can do is just hope to not be collateral damage when the whole thing blows up.
Yeah, it could take everybody down, and that's the scary part. So, Ed, again, thank you for your column. I don't think people appreciate how much time and effort that you put into it, and how many people read it around the world, and it's given them a different view and an insight into what's really going on in these markets.
Well, it takes me from probably 8-9 hours just to write it, and I have about 39,000 readers a day, and very loyal readers, and I'm grateful for every single solitary one of them, and most of them, or a lot of them, make contributions to my column every day in the form of charts and graphs and cartoons and stories and sayings and quotes, and I'm just grateful that I'm able to bring them along for this ride of a lifetime.
Yeah, well, it certainly is that. Ed, thanks so much, and you can be found on Casey Research /GSD, I believe.
That's right, or just Google my name, Ed Steer, Steer, and the link will pop up, and you just click on it and go to the webpage and put your email address in at the top right-hand corner, and it comes to your inbox every day, every morning for free.
Excellent, Ed. And if you want to hear this interview, as well as a number of others I've done with Ed and guys like Doug Casey, Mark Faber, just go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com, sign up, and you're in. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Ed, you be well.
Thanks so much, Barry.